I was a little surprised by how many people asked me to start making and selling these small bobbin holders for rod building purposes. I'd put out a video a while back that shows how you can make your own, and a lot of people actually asked if I could make some and sell them. I thought I'd do that. I decided to make these out of spring stainless steel. They're spring tempered stainless steel, which would be 304 stainless steel. So it is not as rust resistant as 316 stainless steel, so you want to keep these in a moisture controlled environment. You probably won't have any rust issues with them, but it's a possibility. So I wanted to do that, and I also wanted to get some beads that were a little more consistent in quality than the ones I had. These are all fairly round. None of them are exactly perfect, but they work well for these little bobbin holders. And it took me a little while, but I got a little storefront set up on Shopify where you can purchase these. If you purchase 4 or more together, you'll get free shipping on it. And I'm sorry about shipping costs. That's just what it is. Everything's gotten so out of hand on pricing, and shipping is one of those things. There's not really anything I can do about that. But if you buy 4 at a time, then it will save you the shipping costs, which will almost pay for another bobbin holder. So if you're part of the crowd that is the shut up and take my money crowd, there's a link in the description where you can buy these. But if you're interested in hearing a little more about them, I've got this video set up, and I'll show you some ways you can transfer thread from your spool onto your bobbin, what type of bobbin you need, what these are useful for, and things of that nature. These were designed to work with the plastic Singer brand sewing bobbins. They're class 15 bobbins. That's the only ones I know 100% for sure that these will work with. And the reason why I chose the class 15 Singer bobbins is because they were the cheapest ones on the shelf at Walmart. I figured if they're that cheap, they must be very common, and you could probably pick them up just about anywhere. And I've seen them at craft stores and on Amazon and Walmart and places like that. Just about anywhere that has sewing supplies will have these bobbins also. At Walmart, they're a little over $1 for a package of 4 of them. There are purpose-built machines for transferring thread from a full-size spool onto bobbins. Most sewing machines have built-in bobbin winders, but they do make standalone machines that do that, and they're very cheap, or what I would consider cheap. They're anywhere from $10 to $20 at most stores. This one I've picked up at a thrift store for somewhere less than $2. It was just under $2. It's pretty convenient because you can actually run it off of batteries. And I showed that in the video where I showed how you make these bobbin holders. I'm going to show you another method here using a drill and a piece of 1/4 inch threaded rod. It's a 1/4 by 20, the 20 threads per inch. I'm just going to use that threaded rod with 4 nuts to give me something to chuck the spool up into my drill. And you just want to tighten these down finger tight. You can probably see in the background there, I had some wrenches trying this out. These bobbins are made out of polystyrene. That's the same stuff that CD cases are made out of. They crack super easy. So you don't want to do anything but finger tighten the nuts on the threaded rod up against the bobbin holder. If you do anything with wrenches, you'll break them, and I'm sure you can figure out how I know that. So you just want to finger tighten these down enough to where the spool won't spin on the shaft. There are holes in the bobbin that you'll run the thread through, and I just wrapped the excess thread onto the shaft and taped it down so it wouldn't come loose. Once you get it started good, it's not a problem, but at the beginning it'll want to come right out of there if you don't have it attached somehow. And I'm just using a bent paper clip in order to guide the thread back and forth onto the bobbin, and I'm using my spool tensioner off of my wrapping jig in order to keep tension on the spool as I'm transferring the thread from the spool onto the bobbin. And that's a pretty quick and easy process to do also. So onto the bobbin holders themselves. These things are super convenient to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people will enjoy using them too. They are a lot smaller in size than a typical fly tying bobbin holder. Those things are long, and they need to be because of how you use them. But for rod building, they really get in the way. They're too long and they're too wide. They're just too bulky. For me, they get in the way. And I've tried to use mine in the past. I do own one. It's just too big. So that's why I came up with these. And it's something I'd been thinking about doing for quite a while. It's one of those things I've just recently gotten to. And I really liked how they turned out, and apparently other people did too. They give you a easy way to store a lot of thread in a compact area. They are not too bulky, and they don't really get in the way for me personally while I'm working. And they're really convenient for doing decorative trim or decorative wraps or inlays and things like that, because you can hold quite a bit of thread on them. And if you need to let go for some reason, you can let go of your work and just let the bobbin holder hang there. They don't weigh a whole lot, but they have enough weight to where they will dangle from the rod and the thread won't come loose. I do want to note that these are not really a precision tensioning device. You'll probably want to use your fingers as you work to control the amount of tension on the thread. They're not adjustable. They're really there just to hold the thread and to keep the thread on the spool without the spool rolling off or thread coming out when you don't want it to, things like that. And the bobbins are not under a whole lot of tension. It's enough to where it won't come undone unless you want it to. If you want to pull more thread out, you can do that fairly easily. But the weight of the bobbin holder itself isn't going to cause the thread to pull off the bobbin if you leave it hanging from the rod. I wanted to show you here, you can squeeze on the beads on the back end of the bobbin holder and actually stop the bobbin holder from turning pretty much. You can pull pretty hard on it at that point and it's not going to move. It's kind of locked down. If you need to pull some more thread out, you can let off of that and it'll pull right out. So if you need to lock the thread down, if you're pulling a little extra tension or something, squeeze the beads on the end there against the spool and it'll kind of lock it in place. If you pulled out too much thread, you can put a little tension with your finger in between the two guide rings, put a little tension there and roll the thread back onto the bobbin by turning the bobbin. If you need to install or remove a bobbin, you just squeeze the two legs together in between the two guide rings. That will spread the beads apart a little bit, enough to where you can get the spool in or out. Then all you need to do is run the thread from the bobbin through the first guide ring that's loose, the split ring. I find it easier to run it through that first and stick it out of the bottom and then push the thread back up through the top guide ring. I really enjoy using these on trim bands and for doing inlays and things like that. Also the tiger stripe wraps that I showed in a previous video. Not the 3D effect tiger wraps, but what I was calling tiger stripe wraps because they look like the stripes on a tiger. It's actually done by wrapping thread around your primary color. This little bobbin holder really makes doing some of that stuff a whole lot easier and more convenient in my opinion. A lot of the time in the past when I've been doing that sort of work, I use long pieces of thread that I cut off. It gets everywhere. It wraps around the rod blank when you don't want it to sometimes, and it's just kind of unruly to deal with at times. And on decorative wraps, I've also just held a spool in my hand, and if you drop that spool while you're working, it can be a real mess. This is a really nice way to keep a lot of thread in a small package, and it also won't despool the thread on you while you're working. Once again, the link is in the description below where you can go to buy these, and I appreciate y'all watching. If y'all have any questions, let me know. Talk to y'all later.